time to take this interview. We know that you are a professor in EMlyon and I'm a student from your big data in business class. I also know you are responsible for the data department of EMlyon and you are good at Gephi. Yeah.
Gephi.
Gephi. Sorry for that.
No, you pronounce it as you want.
Okay, so could I ask you some questions about Gephi?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And first, for people like me who never heard of Gephi because we don't have the background of the Gephi, what is the Gephi?
Mm-hmm.
Such as the functions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So Gephi is a software which works on desktops, so not in the browser of a computer, but you install it on a desktop. It works for Mac, Linux, and PC. And what it does is it allows you to visualize networks. So a network is something where relations count, where relations are part of the matter of interest. And these networks, you can have a numerical analysis of networks or analytical analysis. But what Gephi provides is a visual interface to explore them, to visualize and explore them. So that's what it does.
Second that I noticed that you mentioned the Lotion network. So it's a network. What does it mean? It means a human relationship network or something else?
Oh, sorry?
I mean the network's meaning is only referring to the human relationship like the Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Or
so
others.
no, it's wider than that. It's not just social networks. As you just mentioned, the prime example of networks we think of often is social networks. Maybe because we have Facebook in mind, or maybe because we know we have a network of friends, or maybe because we know from the press that there are criminal networks as well. So we tend to think of networks always as networks of humans with social relations. But actually a network can be anything where entities have relations. So for example, you could think of, let me think.
Recipient?
Which one?
Recipient.
Oh yeah, recipient.
Yeah,
that's a good one. That's the one we discussed. Exactly. A network of ingredients. So that sounds weird because ingredients are not friends. So that's not the type of relations they have. But indeed, if you take all recipes from a cooking recipes website or a book of recipes, and then you take all ingredients from each recipe, then you can establish a relation between any two ingredients if they frequently co-occur in recipes, if they are often mentioned together in many recipes. If you do that for any two ingredients, maybe that's not that interesting, but when you expand this logic to every ingredient, what you get at the end is a network of all ingredients, and it's not random. You have ingredients that tend to be connected one with each other, like you can identify Asian food quite quickly, and you can identify culinary trends and styles like Mediterranean cooking, because these ingredients tend to be used like olive oil and tomato tend to be used in the same recipes. So networks fundamentally can represent many different things, not just humans.
Okay. I also read some articles about Gephi, and I noticed that there are two solutions. One is the dynamic network, and another is the static network. What's the differences?
So most of the time, yes, dynamic versus static. Most of the times, networks are static in the sense that you take a snapshot of what exists. Like, who are my friends? looking at a network in a dynamic way, looking at a dynamic network just means that you take into account the time dimension, the fact that a network can evolve. So in many different ways, humans can disappear from a network, friendships can be created or can disappear, and that would be the same for cooking. If you take the example of ingredients, when a new cooking style emerges, it will create new relations between recipes. So that in terms of visualization, since Gephi is about visualizations, instead of having a picture, you will have a movie of the network and the way it changes in time.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I also read your paper, cooperate with bank in Dutch.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I noticed that you
Bank of
mentioned
the
that,
Netherlands.
I mentioned that you said is the challenge of the government is when it deals with huge numbers of data, it's very difficult to tell.
Yes.
How to solve these problems.
Well, it's the first issue is, should you try to visualize huge networks? It might not be the case, because if the network is big and too big for your screen, then you don't understand anything, right? It's a big blob of things and you don't understand. But in the case of the analysis of financial networks with the Central Bank of the Netherlands, so the data set was huge because it was all the transactions, like loans between private banks in the Netherlands as collected by the central bank. All these loans, which often have a duration of a couple of hours or days, for several years. So we had a lot of transactions, but the view was still clear because it was a dynamic network, in the sense that we were just tracing these connections for the time of their existence. So they were disappearing and reappearing quickly, and the number of agents was limited. Like the biggest banks in the Netherlands, I think we had 20 to 30 max things on the screen. So it was very easy to read, not easy to make, because as you mentioned, this data has to be, the software has to be powerful enough and to handle that, and it should also be able to handle millions of dynamic relations, which Gephi provides. So that's the reason why we use Gephi in this paper.
Okay, thank you. And also for the application in business, how to apply Gephi in business, and is there any gap existing between the reality and the Gephi's results?
Yes, the way you can use the main way you can use Gephi in business, in my opinion, is for exploratory analysis. So it's this. What does it mean, exploratory analysis? It just means that you have a data set and it's too big in your Excel spreadsheet or in your database, and you don't even know where to start in order to understand what it contains. Gephi is very useful to show the whole data set in its entirety. So you can see everything in it, and you can just start distinguishing patterns. So the patterns might be useful later or not. A quantitative or analytical method would help knowing that. But Gephi is very important at the first step to at least understand the spread and the connectivity and the way nodes tend to regroup into communities. And then Gephi is helpful to zoom in, zoom out, filter. So Gephi in business, it's very useful to not jump on a hypothesis and testing it with any statistical package. Gephi is useful the step before, to actually wonder what kind of interesting hypotheses could emerge from this data set. And then you go with your regular statistical package about, is it indeed a community or not? Are these things, do they actually tend to relate to each other in a non-random way? All of that you do in a second step, but to at least imagine new questions on your dataset, which is a crucial step. Gephi is very useful.
Right, very useful. And I know there are also some other data analysis software like Tableau.
Yes,
So
yes,
what's
yes, yes.
the differences between?
Yeah. So Gephi, Tableau, D3, which is a library to show networks on the web. These correspond to the overlap in their functions. I wonder, but you might be able to trace networks in Tableau. Not sure, but that could be done. No, that could be done. In D3 on the web page, you can trace and visualize interactive networks, and you can share it on the web, which Gephi can't. But where Gephi is very powerful is that it's a click and point software dedicated to the visualization of networks. So it does one thing, but it does it very well. So it's easy to handle because D3 is nice, but you have to code everything from scratch. Tableau is nice, but it will produce a network visualization without, it does it, and then there is nothing you can modify about it or explore. Gephi, to the contrary, gives you all the possibilities to how can I say, just explore the dataset from any direction. It has an Excel spreadsheet kind of view. It has functions to calculate, to compute metrics on it. It allows you to visualize these metrics in colors or through sizes, all of that in one space. So that's, and at scale as well, as Tableau or D3 would have a hard time visualizing a network above 10,000 nodes. Gephi can go up to 100,000. So you are never limited by, you are never distracted by anything. You can work on networks with Gephi for sure.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all what I wanted.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.